Yep.
That's all right. You can have it.
Um,
They didn't like me anyway.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's February 28th, 2022. It's the Boards of Directors regular meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'll do the pledge, and Vice President Schaefer will do the invocation. So please stand and follow me. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
While you're all still standing, except for you Zoomers. Sorry, Art. As we proceed with our meeting this evening, I generally ask for guidance in our decisions, which I obviously am doing again tonight. But I think there's other things that we would ask help on. Craziness that's going on in Europe. Please be mindful of the poor innocent folks that are caught in the middle of that and deliver them to safety and well-being. As we tend to also be moving out of this COVID madness, please continue to let those trends be a positive note to all of us involved. We appreciate the blessings that we get and look forward to making decisions this evening in the best interest of all of our ratepayers and those concerned. Amen.
Would you do the roll call, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Director Arthur Perry,
Here.
Director Brett Eccles,
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer. Here. Vice President Mike Schaefer,
Here.
President Robert Uten.
Do we have any announcement of late communications?
No, Mr. President.
And I don't believe there are any ceremonial matters or presentations.
No, sir.
So that will go down to public comment. I think you, Ms. Keeler, you want to speak in an item later in the evening. Do I see any raised hands or? Okay, I think we can go on then. To the consent calendar. Do any of the directors wish to pull any item for discussion? Or do I have a motion?
Move for approval of the consent calendar. Consent calendar is presented.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any- Madam Clerk, can you mute them?
Yes,
Okay, we have a public hearing. I need to open the public hearing. It's a consider voting division adjustments after the decennial census. Who will be giving this presentation, Scott?
I think I'll give the lead in, Mr. President, and then I think we have
Okay.
Deborah, demographer on.
Okay. You want to start?
President, members of the board, the Federal Voting Rights Act and the California Voting Rights Act authorize challenges to at-large voting if they cause vote dilution of a protected class. In response to a challenge received in 2018, the district adopted a by-division voting system so that protected classes would be better able to elect their preferred candidates or otherwise influence elections by eliminating vote dilution. The district held 5 public hearings and utilized the Citizens Advisory Committee to assist in creating maps. I believe the board considered 7 different maps. The divisions are required to be roughly equal in population with no more than a 10% variance in population variance between divisions. After considerable public outreach, the board adopted the map that created the existing voting divisions. Any entity adopting such a map must review the map after the federal decennial census and make adjustments based on population changes. The census was delayed this year due to COVID, and the legislature established a compliance date of April 17th of this year. The 2020 federal census showed just enough change in the district's population to warrant adjustment in 2 divisions. That's the way our demographer, Deborah Deep of the Center for Demographic Research, worked it up, and she was able to adjust the two divisions to make the divisions roughly equal again. This is the map we are recommending. And we're required to have at least two public hearings on this, and this is our first public hearing.
Deborah?
Yes, thank you, everyone. So I'm going to bring up the presentation. And based on what happened last time, and I appreciate you allowing me to participate virtually, I'm going to turn off my video to try and ensure that we don't get hung up like we did last time. So again, my name is Deborah Depp. I'm the director of the Center for Demographic Research at Cal State Fullerton. The PowerPoint was included in the agenda packet. And so we also include an acronym list for those that aren't familiar with some of the acronyms that we use. Every 10 years, agencies that elect their boards by division or district are required to evaluate the equality between the areas represented by the board using the most recent decennial census information. This process is called redistricting. There are various requirements in both state and federal law on the redistricting process and data that are used in redistricting, and council can expand on those if there are any questions. There are two key sources of data used in redistricting efforts. The first is the decennial census public law 94171 redistricting data file. This file includes the total population by race and ethnicity, along with population aged 18 and over by race and ethnicity. Though the data is normally released by April 1st in the year following the decennial census, the data was actually delayed by 5 months, as Alan had mentioned, due to the COVID pandemic and related shutdowns. The second file used is the citizen voting age population, or Cvap. The Cvap is a product of the US Census Bureau's American Community Survey, or ACS. This is a monthly household sample survey of about 250,000 households each month across the nation. These are 5-year estimates, which means the data is collected over a 5-year period. The most recent data set available is the 2015 to 2019 5-year estimates. These data were collected between January 2015 and December 2019, so these will not match the 2020 census counts. These were originally generated at the 2010 census block group level and were disaggregated by the statewide database from the 2010 census block groups to the 2020 census blocks. These are estimates of the population by race and ethnicity for the adult population aged 18 and over that are citizens. So this is the population that is eligible to vote. The first step in redistricting is to evaluate the current conditions and equality among the existing director divisions. This is determined by first calculating the total population for the agency. The district's 2020 population is 118,287 people. And when you divide that by the number of board members, which is 5, you come up with a target population for the redistricting effort of 23,657 people for each division. When the district undertook this effort to create the director divisions in 2019, the 2010 census data was used, since that was the most recent federal decennial census data available at the time. And between 2010 and 2020, the district has only grown by about 2,100 people, or 1.8%. Now, since the growth in the district and actually throughout the county was not uniform since the last census, when we look at the existing director divisions, we see the large difference. There are large differences between the current division populations. During the districting effort in 2018, the target population was 23,235, and now the target population is 23,657. Division 1 is just over the target population by 452 people, or 1.19%. Division 2 is the largest division at 1,350 above the target, or 5.7% above. Divisions 3 and 4 are the smallest and below the target population. And Division 5 is just about right at 191 people above the target population, or 0.81% off the target. Another key thing to remember when creating a division plan is that the percent spread between the smallest division and the largest division should be under 10%. That's because 10% is presumptively constitutional. To use this as a visual to explain how the numbers are used, for the current divisions, again, divisions 3 and 4 are below the target population, and divisions 1, 2, and 5 are above the target population. When we calculate the percent spread, again, the smallest division is division 4 at 5.42% below, and division 2 is the largest at 5.7% above. What we do is we actually convert those two to positive numbers, what's called the absolute value. And when we convert the negative number to a positive to 5.42%, when we add those two numbers together, we get a percent spread of 11.13%, which is above the target population, above the percent spread allowed. And so the divisions do need to be adjusted. This is a map of the current director division boundaries adopted in 2018. Remember that the smallest division is 4 and the largest is 2, and they're not connected. So we can't just do a simple swap between the two. The primary goal of redistricting is to have the divisions be as nearly equal in population as possible, but there are additional criteria that may be considered when drawing division boundaries. These include topography and geography, which means to follow natural or built features such as freeways and roads, rivers, or mountains. The divisions should be attached or contiguous. If possible, the divisions should be compact and cohesive, and you can consider communities of interest like local neighborhoods or groups with shared economic or social interests. Within the district, the racial and ethnic distribution of the population varies and has changed since 2010. This chart shows the racial and ethnic distribution for the 3 variables that are used in redistricting, which is the total population, the population aged 18 and over, and the estimated population that is 18 and over that are citizens. That's the Cvap population, those that are eligible to vote. The shares for each of the population types vary in part because the age structure of the racial and ethnic groups are different. These differences help to explain the total numbers for the different data sets that are reported in the existing conditions report for the current director divisions. The following slides contain reference maps displaying the shares of the total population by race and ethnicity, broken down into the census block groups for the district. In all of the subsequent maps, when a block groups are shaded in gray, it means that specific racial or ethnic group is not a majority of the block group's population. So we're starting here with the Hispanic or Latino of any race for the existing director divisions. In this map, anything that's shaded in green means that Hispanics or Latinos have a population share that is a majority of that specific block group at 50.1% or more. We see that there are some areas where Hispanics or Latinos are a majority of the block group populations, primarily in divisions 3 and 4 in the South. This map here on slide 13 is the share of non-Hispanic whites by block group. Any areas shaded in the magenta or purple color are areas where non-Hispanic whites are a majority of the block group population. And therefore, anything that's in gray is where whites are not a majority of that population, majority population for that block group. Here are the share of non-Hispanic Asians. There are no block groups where non-Hispanic Asians are a majority of the block group population, but there are some larger shares in the northern part of the district adjacent to Fountain Valley. The largest percent share of non-Hispanic Asians within the district is 27.4%. The next we have is the non-Hispanic Blacks or African Americans. And yes, your eyes are not playing tricks on you. All of this is the lightest gray color because there are no, again, block groups where non-Hispanic Blacks or African Americans is a majority share of the block group population. And actually the largest percent share within the district is 3.5%. We see the same thing for the non-Hispanic American Indian or Alaska Native population, where the whole map is shaded in the lightest gray color. And the largest share of non-Hispanic American Indian and Alaska Natives is 0.8%. The same goes for the non-Hispanic Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, where the population share is no greater than 2.3% in any given block group within the district. For the population that reported being some other non-Hispanic race, we see the same thing again, where the population share is no greater than actually 1.5% in any given block group within the district. On slide 19, we have the population shares for those non-Hispanic 2 or more races. The largest share is 14.3%. The following maps, the next 3 maps, are the population shares of the citizen voting age population by block group and race ethnicity. Because the population shares of the other racial and ethnic groups are so small and the concentrations are really so dispersed, the Cvap data is only being shown for the 3 largest racial and ethnic groups. We're starting again with the Hispanic or Latino of any race. And again, we see some similar areas where the majority population is Hispanic or Latino within the block groups, but there are fewer within the district with a majority Cvap share. There's actually only 10 block groups where the Hispanics or Latinos are majority of the Cvap population. Here are the Cvap shares for non-Hispanic whites. The majority shares we can see are found throughout the agency. And then we have the share for non-Hispanic Asian Cvap. We see similar concentrations as seen with the total non-Hispanic Asian population in the northern part of the district. But again, none where non-Hispanic Asians are actually a majority of the population. This table is included in the existing conditions report for the current director divisions and included here for reference. It is the racial and ethnic population shares for the total population, the population 18 and over, and then the Cvap population. Taking into account the redistricting criteria and the data available, as I mentioned earlier, Division 4 is the smallest and Division 2 was the largest. Since Division 3 is already under the target population and Division 1 was so close to the target, a swap between Divisions 2 and 5 would lower the percent spread, but retain much of the current recognizable division boundaries and neighborhoods. So if we moved, what I did was move just 3 census blocks from Division 2 into Division 5, and now the percent spread is under 10%. The boundary between Division 2 and 5 would change from 22nd Street and then up Santa Ana Avenue across Virginia Place to the 55 freeway. And Plan 1 is being presented for discussion today. This is a table of the Cvap shares for the existing director divisions and then the Cvap shares for Plan 1. And if we toggle back and forth, you see that the shares stay almost exactly the same, and the largest Hispanic Cvap division is still Division 4 in Plan 1, Division 4 at 35.4%. There was a board study session on February 8th. This is the first public hearing, again, as council mentioned. The deadline to complete the redistricting process is April 17th, and then the information needs to be sent to the registrar of voters to implement for the November 2022 election. For that election, there are 3 divisions up, and then Divisions 2 and 4 would be up in November 2024. So today is to solicit comments, answer questions, and for the board to have a discussion. And considering the looming deadline, the public hearing next set is for March 14th, at which the board is expected to adopt boundary revisions. Council is here, staff is here, and so I will turn it back over to them to see if they would like to add anything, or we'll open it up for questions.
Do any of the directors have discussion input on this?
I just a minor question, I think. The folks that were, the changes are to Division 2 and 4, correct?
To 2 and 5.
Or I'm sorry, 2 and 5.
Mhm.
So those folks that are in Division 2 that voted in the last election by district, and I think the numbers are probably small in that area, do they get to vote in the new election for the new district that they're in?
So they would vote currently in November 2022. Divisions 1, 3, and 5 are up, and you're the only agency that ever listened to one piece of advice I had, which was to do odds and evens. So thank you for that. But 1, 3, and 5 would be up for election. So the blocks, the 3 blocks here that were in Division 2 that are now in Division 5 The folks that live here and the voters that live in these 3 blocks would be voting in the November 2022 election instead of in 2024.
So that's the only populace within the whole sanitary district where the folks get to vote consecutively instead of waiting 4 years.
Correct. Yes. And
And-
so nobody would have to wait 4 or 6 years.
Okay, so and in those 3 blocks, Deborah, I'm sure the numbers aren't that high in terms of people who can vote.
Mhm.
Is it a relatively small number?
It would be, so if I go back to, I'm gonna pull up the, just gonna look here down at my cheat sheet. I think for Plan 1, I might be able to just calculate it right now.
You know, that's okay. I mean,
It would
I'm
probably
looking-
be a couple hundred tops.
okay. So they voted for the director in Division 2 in 2020. And they get to vote again in 2022 as members of Division 5.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry to throw that in there, but I kept
Oh, no.
thinking
No.
I kept thinking double dipping there, but they're really not.
They're really not. And this is one instance where for other agencies, there are some folks that if it was in a sense reversed, they would not be voting until they didn't vote in 2020. And then they'd have to wait until at least 2024 or even 2026, depending on kind of, or when they voted last in 2018. So it could be a 6-year gap, but you actually have a set of voters that would be voting in 2 elections consecutively, but nobody having to wait 6 years.
Thank you for clarifying that. Had it gone if the changes gone the other way, those folks wouldn't have voted for 6 years.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you
Oh, sure.
leading my simple brain down that. I appreciate it.
Doesn't appear there are any further director's comments. Do we have any public that want to speak on this item? I don't see any raised hands I will close this public hearing and go on to the second public hearing, which is consideration of annual wastewater collection charges. Scott, are you and the consultant going to lead this?
Mr. President, you have a script ready that we would like you to.
There's a script for any that we would like you to start off the public hearing with. So you should have that before you.
I'm not sure that I know where it is.
But we'll show it where it is.
Real quick, before we leave voting divisions. So on March 14th at the special meeting, that will be the only subject on the agenda is to change the voting divisions, right?
So this is for both public hearings?
That's our second public hearing. That's when we'll adopt the changes to the map.
Okay. Okay. I'm back on track. This is a Prop 218 hearing. It's entitled Sewage Collection Rate Hearing, and it's for the period 2022 through 2027. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we will be considering imposing rates for wastewater collection. In considering these rates, we will be complying with Prop 218 and to a certain extent with the Health and Safety Code. With respect to the hearing procedures, each of you will be given an opportunity for input at the appropriate time. First, I'd like to ask our district council to give an overview of the procedure. Mr. Burns?
Thank you, Mr. President. As you know, Proposition 218 was passed by the voters in 1996. Imposes substantive and procedural requirements on the district with respect to regarding the substantive provisions of Proposition 218, the law provides that each property-related fee must meet the following tests. The revenues derived from the fee or charge must not exceed the funds required to provide the property-related service. The revenue from the fee or charge must not be used for any purpose other than that for which the fee or charge is imposed. The amount of the fee or charge imposed upon any parcel or person as an incident of property ownership must not exceed the proportional cost of the service attributable to the parcel. Fourth is that the fee or charge may not be imposed for service unless the service is actually used by or immediately available to the owner of the property in question.
Fine.
Fees and charges based on potential or future use are not permitted. Standby charges must be classified as assessments and must not be imposed without compliance with the proportionality requirement for assessments. And lastly, no fee or charge may be imposed for general government services, such as police, fire, ambulance, or libraries. Services available to the public in the same manner as other property. Manager will be presenting a report for each charge in which he will document how each of these tests have been made. The report has been made available to the public for their review. Excuse me. Once the report has been presented, you should ask any questions of staff you might have. Then ask the clerk to provide the status report whether the protest has been received. The clerk has provided written notice by mail to all parcels subject to the charges. The law provides that if written protests are presented by a majority of the owners of the parcels, the charges may not be imposed. Since only a written protest can be considered, staff has developed forms for the use. And there are 26,302 parcels that are subject to the charges being considered. There's not a sufficient protest, the board may consider whether or not to impose the charge. Adopt the proposed resolution.
Well, thank you. At this time, we'd like to hear from the general manager as to whether the charges comply with substantive provisions of Proposition 218.
Thank you, Mr. President. The proposed wastewater collection charges for 2022-2027 meets the substantive requirements for Prop 218 as follows. So the first test was revenues derived from the fee or charge do not exceed the funds required to provide wastewater collection services. That test is met because no components other than those directly related to providing the services are used to establish the charge. The components include personnel, such as salaries and benefits, maintenance, which includes pipe cleaning, pump station maintenance, fleet maintenance, building maintenance, and capital improvements, which is pipe replacements or rehabilitations, and pump station improvements or rehabilitations. The test number 2 is revenues from the fee or charge is not used for any purpose other than for which the fee or charge is imposed. This test is met because the revenues is to be used only for the components of providing wastewater collection services I just mentioned above, or just mentioned a few minutes ago, as identified in the district's yearly budget. Third test is the amount of a fee or charge imposed upon any parcel or persons as an incident of property ownership does not exceed the proportionate cost of the services attributed to the parcels. Again, this test is met because the costs allocated to customer classes are based on 3 components: volume of discharge, the relative strength of discharge, and when we talk about the water strength, it's industry norms to measure the biochemical oxygen demand, or BOD, and total suspended solids, or TSS. And finally, the third component is the number of connections. Then the annual rates are determined by dividing the cost allocations of each customer class by the number of billing units within that class. For example, the total annual cost allocations for single-family residential customers is $2,143,949 divided by the number of units, 21,181, resulting in an annual charge of $102.22. I'm sorry, $101.22. The fourth test is the fee or charge may not be imposed for the services unless the service is actually used by or immediately available to the owner of the property in question. Fees or charges based on potential or future use of a service are not permitted. Standby charges must be classified as assessments and must not be imposed without compliance with proportionality requirements for assessments. This test is met because the charge is not imposed for services unless the service is actually used by or immediately available to the owner of the property in question. Properties not receiving wastewater collection services are not charged. And then the fifth test is no fee or charge may be imposed for general governmental services such as police, fire, ambulance, or library services, where the service is available to the public, essentially the same manner as it is to the property owners. Again, this test is met because no fee or charge is imposed for general government services such as police, fire, ambulance, or libraries. It's only imposed for wastewater collection services. The district provides only solid waste and wastewater collection services, and all charges collected for wastewater collections are used only for that purposes. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Madam Clerk, have all the appropriate mailings and publishing of notices for this hearing occurred?
Yes, Mr. President.
Madam Clerk, would you please give us a status report on the protests that you have received to date?
Yes, the district has received 10 protests so far out of total parcels numbering 26,302.
Thank you. We'll now hear from any person that wants to speak regarding this matter. Remember, if you're protesting charges by law, only your written protest will count. Please make sure that you filled out one of the forms if you want to have your protest count. I will now open the public hearing on this matter. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. If there's anyone, is there anyone that desires to speak? Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'm just curious, of the 10 that protested, are they from the same areas or different areas?
Different areas.
Different areas. Thank you.
I will now close the public hearing. Madam Clerk? Oh, have I done this one before? Okay, I'll skip down a little further then. So we said there were 10 protests out of 26,302 parcels. Thank you. The protest fails. I will now ask for a motion to adopt the scheduled charges in resolution number 2022.
I'll move for approval.
Mr. President, I did have a couple questions. If we can go with that. Scott, I don't know what was about a month or two ago, whatever it was. You had led a discussion at the Chamber of Commerce, and I was on as well. Did they have any follow-up comments after that meeting that you're aware of?
No, they did not.
Okay, gotcha. And then on the 10 protests, was it protests just against any rate change? Okay, gotcha. And then okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, let's see.
This time for us to ask questions?
No, let me finish.
Yes, sir.
I think we'll have some discussion, but the protest fails. I'll now ask for a motion to adopt the scheduled charges in resolution number 2022-954 for wastewater collection services for the year 2022 through 2027. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second for discussion.
Okay, motion for second and discussion. It says now we vote.
Can't we discuss before we vote? I don't know if this is appropriate, but we've gotten some correspondence about someone who objected to not being able to protest. Can you clarify what that was all about? I was a little confused.
So there was a resident that staff has been corresponding with back and forth for several weeks regarding how do we define a written protest? Because in the Prop 218 notice indicates that the district will only accept written protest as a viable protest. And so this one resident wanted to know why we would not accept emails as a written protest. And it's a valid question. However, as I mentioned to the resident, Prop 218 was passed in the 90s. I don't think they consider electronic messages as written protest. It's not defined clearly. So district council and I have determined that we believe written protest means handwriting or typed paper. Now, with that said, and district council, correct me if I'm wrong, if you want to allow emails as electronic process, we can adopt policies for that. But at this point, we don't have a policy that accepts it.
Can we adopt that in spite of what the legislature says, or does that have to come from legislative action to change it? Do you know?
Are allowed to adopt local procedures and how you interpret it. And as long as you don't go against the state legislature, you could make an interpretation about writing that would possibly include emails.
So technically, we have 11 protests. Had we allowed his email protest, we would have had 11 instead of 10.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Just real briefly before we go to vote. I'm not going to support this as I did in the last meeting when this was put forth. I had a different, I think most reasonable people would agree a rate adjustment is needed. I think this wasn't the right plan for us at this time. There was another plan that staff had offered that I felt was a better rate adjustment. So for tonight, I will not be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Any other discussion by directors?
We have a roll call vote then, please.
Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call vote?
Sure. Director Perry,
Yes.
Dr. Eccles,
No.
Secretary Schaefer, Vice President Schaefer,
Yes.
President Uten.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Well, thank you all for your participation. We request the district clerk set this matter for a hearing to impose those charges on property within the district for collection with general taxes by the tax collector. Is this the time now then for the public to speak, or should we have allowed the public to speak?
You already allowed them to, so the public.
I
closed.
have a card from one of the public.
And yeah,
That's where Prince.
Can you mute them? Miss-
All right.
Yeah, we've already voted.
Well, I still think if you want to
You should
speak.
take your comment anyway. You can always vote to reconsider. Early enough to make you change your mind.
Director Perry, did you have a comment?
I have to leave in a moment. Do I need to stay for this vote?
We already voted.
Okay, so I have to leave the meeting. Our match is over. I'm gonna have to take the students home.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
You gotta go to.
Sorry, Judy, would you mind? Thank you.
Judith M. Gilo, Costa Mesa.
Mr. Micah.
Ooh.
Bring the mic closer to you. There you go.
Judith M. Gilo, Costa Mesa. Costa Mesa. I'm really quite pleased with the compassion that you show as far as in making people pay extra or slowly and not just throw a higher rate on us. And I do hope you remember the old people who've been in the community and in their houses for a really long time, that they may have it harder to get the money to keep paying everybody raising taxes. But I think you folks are doing the right thing because it's for the right purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilo. Do we need to consider? I don't think we need to reconsider. My screen has gone blank. So I intend to close the public hearing and go on to the general manager's reports. Scott, are you going to do this item?
yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This is a consideration for approving out-of-state travel for the finance managers. 2022 Springbrook National User Group Conference in Portland, Oregon on April 4th through 6th, 2022. And this is a conference that she regularly attends every year, but because it's out of state, according to our policies, we need board approval.
Do any of the directors have any discussion on this item?
Mr. President, this question, if I read correctly, which is hopefully the case, but this this is in the budget and it just requires though our approval.
Formality.
Okay, thank you.
Because we do that normally on out of state and for anybody, so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion on this item to approve?
I'll move to approve.
I'm assuming to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone wanting to abstain?
Good way to get your vote done. Just word it the way you want it.
I made a huge assumption. All right, we go on to the engineer's report. Mark, are you going to lead this?
Yes, I am, President Newton. I guess for the sake of brevity and everything going on tonight and the important items before us, I guess I will skip my report, but does anybody have any questions or would you like me to go over something that was in my report?
Okay, item number 2, Mark.
Computer's haunted. And Mark.
Is it, you find, looking for the presentation?
It's sharing on.
Okay. Oh, take your time. I could use the time from my engineer's report for this. Right. I guess I get to speak to you tonight about one of my favorite force mains here. It's probably our largest force main. It's on the largest pump station. I believe it's the largest pump station that we own, the Elden force main and the Yeldon pump station. Most of you probably know this territory and this agency better than I do because I've only been here for about 13 months. But as you recall, this is the Elden pump station. And the force main goes northerly along Mesa Drive to, this happens to be the corner of Newport, I'll say northbound Newport Boulevard and Mesa Drive. I don't know if you could slide that thing over to the left a little bit there. There you go. But what it does is we're showing you the view from the intersection of Mesa Drive and northbound Newport Boulevard across the bridge. So the force main travels northerly along Mesa Drive, and there's a bridge abutment. You can't see, it's buried under the ground. It continues into the bridge and out the other side. Next slide, please. So this picture right here is at the southbound Newport Boulevard, looking, I'll say, easterly across the Mesa SR 55 bridge, Caltrans bridge. So again, the pipeline is traveling northbound to this intersection and then turns and goes, I'll say, southbound along the southbound Newport Boulevard. So maybe slide the photos off to the left a little bit. So we're at the intersection of Mesa Drive and southbound Newport Boulevard. This is the entrance right here to the fairgrounds. I can't remember if they call that the Mesa entrance or what entrance that is, but that, I know on the weekends you can go in there to go to the farmer's market. Next slide, please. This photo right here is looking, I'll say, southbound along Newport Boulevard towards Fair Drive. Slide the photos to the left a little bit. And this is looking from Fair Drive, I'll say, northerly along southbound Newport Boulevard. Next slide. Okay, I'm at the intersection of, at this location, I'm the intersection of Fair Drive and southbound Newport Boulevard. I'm looking down Fair Drive. City Hall is on the left-hand side and the main fair entrance is on the right-hand side. Slide that over a little bit. And then this is the main fair entrance. This manhole right here is the discharge point of our force main. And then it goes gravity pipe to this manhole right here. And then from there, it goes westbound along Fair Drive over to Fairview. And then it dives into an Orange County Sanitation District Regional trunk line. Next slide, please. Just again, you probably know this pipeline better than I do, but to refresh your memory, it's an 18-inch diameter ductile iron pipe. It pushes about 4,000 gallons a minute of water through that pipeline. It's about 3,000 feet long, and we send about 1.4 million gallons of water through that pipeline every day. And just for talking purposes, it's enough wastewater to fill 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools through that one pipeline. That's why I'm so interested in this one, because it's got the biggest, if we have a problem, it's got the most water that can impact our environment. Next slide.
So that 1.4, that's all east side?
Yes, mostly. There's a little bit on the south end of that east side that goes to Dover and down Dover to Pacific Coast.
Is that the only egress from the east side? Don't we have another one?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. 21st Street Pump Station does pump across. There's a bridge across the SR 55.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that goes out. So there's a little bit of sewer shed, I'll call it, from that area too. So a little bit goes down Dover, a little bit goes out 21st, but by far the lion's share comes out of this pump station.
So the east side puts more wastewater out than any other section of town.
I without looking at comparing all the different.
That was a
things,
flippant comment.
Wow.
Mark. You didn't need that.
Was that a shot at me?
No, not at all.
My
Not at
house
all.
is right down the street from there, so yes.
Oh. Does this involve the Costa Mesa High School pool?
It could. I wouldn't want to swim in that, but I was just trying to give you
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
sense of how
yeah.
much water can come out of this
Sure.
pipeline every day.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
My concerns or our agency's concerns are major earthquake. We did some maintenance work. I want to say last June. I was out there all night with the contractor, our inspector, and some other folks on crews that were our district staff that was running around helping to direct the pumper trucks so that we could bypass sewage while we did work in the Mesa Bridge, removing the air vac. I don't know if you recall that, but there was a project for us to remove the air release valve from our Elden force main in that particular bridge. It's very, very difficult. There's so much flow. It's very difficult to use pumper trucks. And the reason we did the work in the middle of the night is we had just enough pumper trucks to be able to handle flow through about 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. Had we gone any longer than that, we wouldn't have been able to keep up using pumper trucks. And the contractor we hired actually went up north, contracted with pumper trucks up there, and it took 2 weeks to strategically get those pumper trucks moved down to Costa Mesa to do this particular project that night. So fortunately, we had plenty of time to plan, plenty of time to coordinate things and get that project built, or at least the air vac removed from it. But I'd like to be able to potentially in the future do condition assessments. I want to make sure that thing stays in good shape. There may be need to do long-term refurbishments. It takes about 8, sometimes 10 hours to, I'll say, clean the line, remove the sewage from it, dry it out enough to where you could put a viable liner through it. That takes quite a bit of time. I don't know that we can do 8 hours worth of outage, but that's something that, we'll have to figure out. What if a separate contractor not related to our work, maybe the freeway work, maybe city work, maybe just a private contractor doing some work? I've seen Edison folks drilling holes in the ground to put their big power lines in. I guess even though we have Dig Alert and we're not, I know our agency is not out on every construction site, but I'm worried, what if they break or damage or the vibration from their job causes us problems? How would we get that fixed in any amount of time that we minimize the spill? And I just want to make sure, and this agency wants to make sure that we keep the pipe ready, and we want to basically prevent spills and protect our public health. Next slide, please. I mentioned that this particular force main goes through the SR 55 bridge. Well, this is a bridge. This is a picture of a bridge failure that occurred during the Northridge earthquake. The biggest thing they've repaired from that bridge is, see this pile, or the pile foundation. They went ahead and updated the standard after that, but you can still have damage. You'll notice that this didn't totally collapse, and that's really what our earthquake standards do for us. You're going to have some damage under a major earthquake, but the design standards are meant to, I'll say, limit the exposure of life to life-threatening situations. So you'll see the bridge completely failed, but it's still hanging in place, and that allowed people to get off of the bridge. But that's my concern. This portion of the bridge dropped down. This stayed where it was. Our force main goes, thinking about that SR 55 Mesa Bridge. If this were our bridge and our pipeline would have been sheared right at that location. Next slide, please. So what are we looking to do? I'm going to say, let me start out again. This is our Elden pump station down off of Mesa Drive in Elden, Mesa Drive, Elden Avenue. And the current force main goes up Mesa Drive, across the bridge, and then it goes southerly on Newport, and then it goes westerly on Fair Drive. I'm looking to commission a study, basically a planning level study that tells us what are our best options and what's available for us to do. So one option to study is we just basically follow the same alignment. I believe the Caltrans Bridge has a place to put another 18 or 24-inch pipeline. We don't need 24-inch, but I think it's got a big enough cradle that we can put a pipe in there. Second option would be we run north along the existing alignment, but instead of crossing that bridge, we come south along the northbound Newport Boulevard to Fair Drive Bridge. We cross the Fair Drive Bridge, and then we basically come back to our alignment, and then we go along our existing alignment to the point of discharge. So that's option 2, I'll say. And then option 3 would be to run northerly to Newport Boulevard, go north along northerly Newport Boulevard. Then we cross the bridge where I'll say the freeway begins to daylight and goes from sub-level to, instead of elevated level, there's a spot there. We think we can push our pipe underneath the freeway. Then we would have to come back south all the way down to Fair Drive, then back across to the discharge point. There's probably a sub option there. You could run to Arlington and then run a gravity sewer west on Arlington to Orange County Sanitation District Regional Line over in Fairview. But that being said, these are the 3 options that we're looking to study. If we put both of our eggs in one basket, what I mean by that is both of our force mains in the existing bridge, although it's a viable option, if that bridge goes, we lose both of our force mains. Second option, we have a different bridge. So one bridge, like I said, not all earthquakes hit everything the same. So one bridge could drop down, the other might not. We have at least separating, putting the force mains in different bridges. We might have an opportunity to have one of them survive an earthquake. The third option really reduces any damage from superstructures from an earthquake, because basically we stay in the ground and we go underneath that freeway. So those are the three options. Of course, there's a fourth option, which is do nothing. This board will have that opportunity to look at those once we do enough study work to understand what are the options, what are the costs, what are the impediments, what are the best recommendations, how do we rank these different options? Now, in all fairness, I've got to give you prices, but I don't know anything. I don't know what are the interfering utilities, as an example. We've basically done very, very little work on this one, other than to look at possible alignments and figure out what options do we have and how do we get across this thing called the State Route 55. I was working with RBH, and between the two of us, we believe that a new force main is going to be about 4.5 million. But again, this is based on not doing any or enough detail analysis on the various alignments. We think this planning study that I'll be asking you to approve tonight, or at least budget money so that we can move forward to the planning study, is about 70,000. I think that engineering will be about $400,000 to $500,000. Again, inspection, construction administration, testing of materials, whatever, all that stuff's another $500,000. Now, at this point, again, I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns, and so I put in a 30% contingency. I think that contingency, as we finish this study, then we go into preliminary design, then we go into design. Every time we go into a new phase, that contingency number should drop unless we find something that we need that extra money for. But at this point, I don't want to surprise anybody, and I want to just leave that there for now. But again, once this study is done, we will know more, and that 30% contingency should drop down quite a bit, I believe. I mean, when I say quite a bit, maybe it'll go to 20%. It depends on what we find during this study phase of the work. Next slide, please. Now, we have this programmed into our master plan. We've put this into our rate study, but it's about 3.5 years from now is when this is targeted to move forward. As you all know, there's basically a $1.2 trillion federal infrastructure bill that is now in place. My understanding is about half the money's been doled out to the states. The states have moved some of that money to the county. The counties have moved that money to the city. Special districts did not really have a place in line for that money. And so we're left to go to knock on the county's door or the city's door and basically ask for money to fund our programs. So the reason why we moved this project forward is Scott, our general manager, and I were talking about, is there an opportunity here to maybe get the federal government to help fund this project? But we have to know enough about this project to know how long would it take to build, what's involved, and what are the costs, and then basically have a shovel-ready project so that we can spend this money by, I believe it's 2026, and there's some provisions in there to move that up to, I think it's 2028. But I think, depending on how this goes and if we can get money, we can certainly get this done by 2026. And I believe that many public agencies are going to have, in my opinion, I think they're going to have issues spending this money on infrastructure. What our general manager and I were talking about is potentially meeting or getting a delegation to meet with our county supervisor, basically to grease the skids, talk about this potential project, and basically see if they would be willing to support our project and help allocate money towards our project. That's another unknown, but unless we try, we never know. I figure let's go out and ask, and what's the worst that's going to happen? They tell us no, and we defer the project to later on. But it never hurts to ask. I think we could make this happen, but in order to know enough about it, again, we need to move the project forward. The next half of the installments go out, I think it's August or September, maybe October timeframe. So that's when the second half of that $1.2 trillion will get doled out. So we do want to get to our supervisor before that happens. Next slide, please. I guess I'm going to refer you not necessarily to this slide, but to the agenda item before you. And I'm basically recommending that our board consider approving new project number 341 Elden Pump Station Redundancy Project, and consider approving appropriations of $70,000 from project number 326, 19th Street Force Main Replacement, and move that money over to project, the new project 341 Elden Force Main Redundancy Project. The reason we have this money available is that we completed the 19th Street Force Main project under budget, and so we have enough money to fund this one. And it just gives us again, an opportunity to maybe go after some federal funding and move this important project over. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Do any of the directors have questions?
Well, I had a comment. I just wanted to say that you realize that we're changing supervisors. So, talking about different dates, and there'll be a different supervisor then.
Get them both.
We've got to start somewhere, and I guess
Yeah.
whoever we get to first, we'll get over
Yeah,
there and we'll
I
knock
just
on the
want you
doors.
to know that. And then also, because CSDA has a lobbyist now in Washington, they are recognizing special districts. And so we're given amount of money now. So you might think about that too.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that the infrastructure deal had allocated anything to special districts, but we
You
can
have to
certainly look
ask.
into that. Yeah.
Director Echols?
Thank you, Mr. President. So first of all, thank you for answering like 3/4 of the questions I came in here with. So very thorough presentation. But couple left. Where else are we redundant currently?
I will tell you that when I came in, we didn't have any redundant force mains. We now have 2 at 19th Street. We have 2 in Iowa. However, I'll say those are very, very small projects. So they were relatively easy to put redundant force mains. We didn't have to cross any big structures, and they're very relatively short compared to this one. This is a pretty big project.
Yeah.
But your general manager and I have been talking about redundancy, and I will say Irvine Ranch Water District had I can't remember if they call it Big Canyon but they had a force main failure. They had a single point of failure in their force main, and of course it failed at that single point, and they got hit really hard by the Regional Water Quality Control Board into the millions of dollars. Now, fortunately, they negotiated taking that money and putting it into infrastructure and other environmental programs. So I don't want to say they dodged a bullet, but they were able to allocate that to do some good and bolster up sewage facilities in that area. So with our size of force main that we're talking about here, I think it's important to at least consider this.
Sure. And then how long would a study of this nature take? Just ballpark.
Once I've got a request for proposal that's basically almost ready to go. I'll get with our general manager. We'll get that out the door probably, I'm going to say late this week, early next week. We'll take about a month to get proposals. And then once we make a selection, I think that we can probably get this work done in 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then we'll bring it back to this board for consideration and provide you with all the detail that we know of.
And then if we tonight approve the budget readjustment of the 70 for the study itself, so you have your RFQs, RFPs basically ready. Will it still be under, competitive bid process, or?
Yes. We're not restricting this to anybody. We're not going to RBH. We do have a contract with them to do engineering work, but our thought was this project was of such magnitude and we didn't want to just limit this. So I'll say, while it's an RFP, it's not, I'll say, bidding, because there are some professional services laws, California laws that are in place here, but price is considered, and it is considered, I'll say, competitiveness, and that we're taking RFPs, we're evaluating them on how they addressed our issues and what we requested in the RFP. And then, of course, price is considered, and then we make a selection.
And would that be staff decision or board decision at that point?
My experience is typically at that level, it's staff decision along with general manager, but we can certainly bring that back.
If it's less than 125,000, it's within my authority to sign. But as I do with all contracts, I let the board know when I sign the contract, who I sign it with.
Got it. Okay.
And you know, this is a transparent process and we can always bring those results, how they were scored. I don't know if you recall, I brought RFPs, you know, results in the back and who did what and how much, and happy to do that again on this one if you're interested.
I would suggest at a study session, just a brief report on that if we move forward on this. And then study comes back, let's say, cool, it's going to cost 6 million, whatever it is. Under our current financial structures and budgets and what we have and what we don't have, I mean, let's assume no Fed money, no county, no help. What's the likelihood we can budget for this over the next couple of years to make it happen?
Well, right now it's programmed into our rates. So at least most of it. If it's somewhere around, I'll say 4.5 or 5 million, we're in there. If it's 6 million, that's when your general manager and I need to look at the program and see what project might we defer to do this, because we have a limited pot of money. And so we can't just do everything we want to do. So again, that's just another aspect. And that's why getting a more detailed, I'll say, cost estimate is important.
Okay.
If I may, we will bring all financial options to the board, because something that we have to put on the table is borrowing, financing.
Yeah.
And CSDA has a really good financial corp that loans money to special districts for infrastructure projects. So we got to put that on the table. So we'll put everything on there and let the board decide.
Yeah, I stand corrected. That is an option. I know when I was at OC Sanitation, we would borrow money in the past. I don't believe they do that now. My understanding is we traditionally don't do that here at Costa Mesa Sanitary, so I didn't throw that up as an option, but yes, it is an option.
Okay. And then last one, just to confirm, the 70 is basically would be reallocated from a project that we did that we saved money on. So this isn't a totally new allocation, right? It's just
Yeah, we're taking it, money
Transfer.
that was allocated on another project that we didn't spend and put it here.
perfect. All right. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Could we bring up slide number 9?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about disruptions.
Yes.
So the one option on the right side going through Santa Ana Country Club.
Well, it doesn't go through the country club.
Well,
They're actually in the boulevard, but yes, it is
Let's put it
adjacent
this
to
way.
that.
It will disrupt the golfers at Santa Ana Country Club.
Yeah, I guess, is that the entrance to the clubhouse on that?
See the lighter shaded between.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
dark-
right there, right there.
No,
Okay.
up a little bit, a little more, little right there.
Yeah, there will be some disruption to traffic in northbound Newport Boulevard, but there will be, I will say, there will be disruption to traffic in any and all of these options. To be honest with you, the reason, and I understand, and I certainly enjoy. I'm a hacker myself, and believe me, I hack. But
If you get a chance to hack at Santa Ana Country Club, I've played there a couple times, but if you get a chance, will you let me know and I'll go with you?
We can mitigate the disruption a couple of ways. One, we can do the work at night, and we can also do horizontal directional drilling.
Okay.
So we can minimize the.
I was
disruption.
thinking about the horizontal drill like we did on Wilson.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Would we use that same option to go under the
That's the
55?
only option you have to go through.
Yeah, because we ain't gonna
Yes.
disrupt the 55.
you-
Okay, and then the last, just codicil in there. So I actually like the one that goes up Newport and then crosses the Fair Drive Bridge. I mean, in my initial thought when I was looking at this, that to me would be the most favorable. I like the concept of not having them both in the same pocket. I mean, that's just asking for a disaster. So would we promise not to do this during the fair?
Oh, I believe Costa
Matt?
Mesa would have some issues with us doing any work during the fair. And I have been involved with many large scale wastewater projects where we've had to coordinate around the boat parade, school holidays, you name it. The fair is probably just another one that we're going to have to coordinate and mitigate impacts. And I suspect there's some moratorium around that. So we wouldn't be doing, the fair has got such traffic issues, we wouldn't be doing it at that time.
And then the last thing is you'd mentioned something about cutting up to Arlington. Would that be the one that goes in front of Santa Ana Country? I mean, you could do it probably in either one of those, except that, again, the one with both lines going through the Mesa driveway. I don't, but so you would go up through the equestrian center essentially and then down Arlington?
Well, this is, I will tell you, this option that goes up to Newport, the northerly, then crosses, this is just a graphical at this point in time. One of the things a consultant will have to do is, do we cross there? Do we cross here? The reason I selected this location graphically is it's about where the freeway tends to daylight. And I don't know if you're probably just more so aware than I am because you've traveled this freeway so much more, but this freeway is about 30 foot, 28 foot deep or something like that. So for us to dig a huge hole and try to poke something underneath that freeway is probably not economically the best option, but we'll have to look at that. Now, where this one, we could poke it across the freeway and not be very deep in the I'll say the bore pit and the receiving pit are going to be reasonably priced. But where exactly goes, that's all part of the study. Okay, now what I was mentioning, one option, instead of, it may cost a little money, but you know, like any option, there's probably sub options. We had talked about if we get across the freeway, do we go up to Arlington and then maybe go all the way down? And then you just don't disrupt any more of this Newport Boulevard, Fair Drive and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know what the cost difference. I thought it was significant enough that I didn't include it as an option.
I'll tell you just as a kind of a afterthought that if you were to do that to go up to Arlington, you're going to get a big battle from the city of Costa Mesa. They just spent a ton of money redoing Arlington and that little, whatever they call that swale, that drain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like an institution. And if you were to propose to the city tearing up Arlington, I think they'd probably.
Oh, plus you have the schools,
Yeah.
Costa Mesa High School and then Davis.
Yeah. I just think that would be a problem.
Yeah, like I said, it didn't seem very viable to me, but it certainly is something that we could always talk about more. But as far as mitigating anything that the city's done, we wouldn't be ripping out their nice walkway. We probably wouldn't rip out the bioswale. Although, you know, pavement, it's easy to trench and put something in there.
Thanks, Mark. Good presentation, by the way.
Any of the other directors have
Your
questions?
photography is excellent.
Mark, do you know whether these bridges were built after the earthquake that you showed squashing the columns?
I don't know the
I mean,
vintage.
That's just something to include in your planning.
Yeah, well, I don't know the vintage of these earthquakes, but one of the items that we're asking the consultant to do is obtain the Caltrans drawings for the freeway, those bridges, and then Newport Boulevard, so we can begin to see what's there, what's involved. So once we get those drawings, we'll know the vintage. I remember seeing a drawing, but I can't remember the year that those bridges were built.
I believe they were pre-94.
Yeah, because
But they would have, I'm guessing because of the amount of traffic on the freeway, those would have been retrofitted, maybe.
well, they either were retrofitted after the Northridge earthquake, or they were built afterwards, and the codes changed because of what happened to those.
Yeah, it did. But again, no structure is going to necessarily have zero damage against, let's say, a major earthquake on the Newport Inglewood Fault. I mean, what I'm trying to do is figure out a way we could maybe minimize damage to at least one of the pipelines.
All this earthquake talk is really making me nervous. We should move away from earthquake.
What Mark has asked for is transfer of money from one project that they did not expend all the money, and to this project. Do I have a motion on that?
Yeah, I'm going to move that we open up project number. I see it. 341 for the Elden Force Main Redundancy Project is a new project, and the transfer of $70,000 from the existing 19th Street project to the project 341.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, further discussion by directors? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you, Mark. Good luck. Okay, we go down to our standard resolution of needing to consider adoption of resolution number 2022-995, authorizing remote meetings. Do any of the directors want to weigh in on this, or do I have a motion?
Just a quick question, Alan, just a clarification. At our OCOG, Orange County Council of Governments meetings, the counselor has this done at the beginning of the meeting. That's the very first thing we do. Do you have any, I mean, is that just a matter of he wanted to do it, wants to do it up front?
I'm not sure we have to line up the 30 days, so that's the important thing.
Okay.
We always got.
Yeah, okay.
And the emergency may be over, so we may not have this.
I wondered about that, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move that we adopt resolution 2022-955, authorizing remote meetings.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. We'll go on to local meetings. I'll start off with the Orange County Sand District. They're giving us a lot of information, and they actually have a monthly status report that I pass on to Scott. It's basically a ton of remediation or rehabilitation. They have a major headquarters that they're building across the street from in Fountain Valley. And they talk a lot about community outreach. What I was paying attention to was the Legislative and Industry Affairs Committee presentation in the last board meeting. And basically they talked about their effort to talk to the local congressman, like Mr. Nim down in Irvine and various people to lobby for getting this infrastructure money. And I pass that on to staff. But they have a special committee that lobbies the California legislation and actually goes to Washington, D.C. There's a lot of other stuff, but I'll end it there. They did recognize 3 staff with 20 years of experience that were all my associates when I was there. Director Perry, are you still on the line?
No, he's
Okay.
gone.
Let's go down to Secretary Schaefer.
Okay. Okay. I will be attending a strategic plan conference. It's June 21st through 23rd. And it will be ending the 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. It will take place in San Diego at the Marriott Hotel at Del Mar Coronado. And nominations are now open for CSDA's deadline, which is May 2nd. And then May 16th, the committee will look over the candidates that have been nominated, and they'll be taking an action on that. In June 13th will be the vote committee. Then let's see, dates to remember is SDRMA is a Spring Education Day, is in person, and it's on March 22nd in Sacramento. And one thing is, well, if we go to that, or anybody goes to it from our group, you get a percentage off, which is kind of nice, financially. Then Special District Leadership Advice Academy is the only done in the South, April 3rd through the 6th in San Diego. And otherwise, it's in the North at Napa Valley. And that's a leadership academy is really important because otherwise we can't have the standing that we've had as excellence and being really good. So all of us have to have that leadership academy behind us. District Ledge Days is May 17th through the 18th in Sacramento. And that's an in-person item also. And then your 700 form needs to be turned in real soon. So if you haven't done it, you should think about that. I've talked to you about the CSDA is having a trial membership. And that means for those people who aren't members and they want to see what we're like and what we can produce, we have 3 months to do it in. And that's 90 days and that they're free to become a member. And so you can see what CSDA is all about. And then CSDA has 95% dues collected already, has already 15 new members, and we have over 1,300 members in existence at CSDA right now. So we're doing very well, plus the different states that are joining us now, and the lobbyists that we now have for special districts that is in Washington, DC that we just hired. That's about it.
Any other directors need to weigh in for, Mike, do you have a SDRMA?
I was hoping you would ask. We actually had a board meeting this month, and probably the best news for you guys is that the rates for casualty and liability property, you'd seen some hefty increases, I know, this year. Well, the reinsurers came back and it looks like they're going to hold the line on about half of what they projected the rate increase. So I'm sure you'll get those projections with your next renewal questionnaire and all that. Had a chance, actually right now this week, I'm attending the Public Agency Risk Management Association conference at the lovely Disneyland Hotel. And, you know, this is for SDRMA, and they've been prepping us to be ready when you get to Disneyland to be masked up. And my little blue, they gave all of us this morning, if you're vaccinated and can prove it, you have to, you have to be vaccinated and approved it. If you're not vaccinated, you have to have a 24-hour test or something.
Wow.
And they actually have a testing site there at the Disneyland Hotel. Costs you $60 to get a test. And, based on the stuff that's happened over the last couple of days, nobody in the Disneyland Hotel was wearing a mask. I mean, it was as wide open. And, you know, the banquet or the keynote speaker this morning, there were thousands of people in this room. And maybe a handful were wearing masks. So Disneyland has even relented and it has some confidence, you know, so that was kind of a good sign. Really nice keynote speaker this morning. She's the head of neurological something or other at New York University. And she gave a really good talk about how anxiety can help you get through life. And smart lady, but it was a very entertaining presentation. Arlene had touched on the fact that Safety Education Day is coming up for SDRMA. I don't believe you're sending anybody up for that, are you, Scott? I'll be there, but I don't count for CIP points.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm on that board, so it'd be.
You have a
kind of double
conflict?
thing. Yeah, so I did get a chance this morning to talk to the broker, Alliant broker who handles our reinsurance and extra lines. And he verified with me this morning about what I just mentioned about the rates not jumping in. Interesting conversation with him in terms of wildfire that, SDRMA did have some wildfire losses, but they were pretty minimal. That's it, sir.
Okay, I attended the Waco meeting, and it was a discussion about forecasting the changes in water in Colorado River Basin, which is one of our local water suppliers. And the prediction is that not much is going to change. And that basin's been in a significant drought for a long time, and it will continue into the foreseeable future. And what that means for us is Southern California will not get extra water. And there's continuing negotiations and making some progress on how to allocate that river's water to the various states. I attended LAFCO actually in January, and it was Carolyn Emery that was the speaker, and she's the CEO or whatever you call the head person of a 5-person team at LAFCO. And their responsibilities are basically logical borders. There's 34 cities and 34 special districts, and they have a budget of about 1.3 million. She talked about their rebranding and significant improvement in outreach to those 34 cities and 34 special districts. And they intend to improve their social media processes. They're involved in municipal service reviews, which they're legislatively required to do. And we'll be involved in that in the near future. And then they always have a special presentation by a district or a city. And Paul Schoenberger gave an update on Mesa Water. I think that concludes it. So we'll move on to old business. Do any of the directors have any or is there any old business? There's none listed. There is no new business. So it's time for oral communications and directors' comments. Do any of the directors have any? Director Eccles?
Thank you, Mr. President. Follow up on our earlier discussion this evening. I would like to see us look at the Prop 218 and any other thing maybe we're behind the times with email communication. So I would be curious about looking at options, how we can get in today's environment through email and whatever else for these sorts of things. So maybe at a future study session.
At least probably the cities and special districts, see what they
Yeah.
do. See, find some way to figure out what.
Yeah.
But by the time we look at this, there'll be a new technology. Someone wants to stream it out through their Netflix. I don't know.
Well, all right.
There's always something. But then last thing is Vice President Schaefer's kind of mentioned a couple of times now. I mean, I think all of us are very excited with positive trends with the current, all the different things going on. So part of that, I'm very excited for the community as a whole. The Pilot Cup, what was a soccer tournament that we haven't had for 2 years, and it's for elementary age school children in Newport Mesa Unified and private schools. We're having it again this year, day after Memorial Day in May, and it goes for a week. It will have roughly 2,500 kids, give or take, which means a whole heck of a lot of parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters. 3rd through 6th graders, the LA Times has relinquished their sponsorship of that, and local organization I'm a part of, Costa Mesa United, is going to take on that task. And so I will be out there with my hair caught on fire. But I bring it up for a couple of reasons, because it's a good community event. But number 2, there will be some needs for some disposable trash things. So I bring it up, maybe we can donate some portable bins for trash, any sort of advertising for the district, anything that we might want to do. It is a wonderful opportunity at Jack Hammett Sports Complex, Davis, and Costa Mesa High School. So just might be something if we want to advertise some stuff, throw out some goodies, whatever. Let me know. And then finally, I definitely want to, I know we got a closed session, but all that's going on in our world and for all the people, as Vice President Schaefer mentioned, that's being affected directly or indirectly. Just take a moment and pray or meditate or think and just be thankful for where we do live and just pray for all those who are suffering. It's not a good deal. Seems we maybe get through one thing and another thing happens, but let's just hope for a peaceful ending and thank you.
And I forgot to include in my little inspirational talk earlier. Alan and I talked about this earlier. The other thing I'd hope happen is baseball would sit down and figure out what the hell's going on. Get the baseball season going.
There you go.
Football's done. The right team won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I have a comment. I just wanted to say that our attorney has put together all these different, I don't know, you call them resolutions or different hearings, different legislation numbers that come up right now. And everything has been changed. So we might think to have something like that at a study session where it does involve 218. It does involve a lot of these that we are caring about and that you've talked about too. So just a thought.
Thank you. Oh, Director Eccles, at the fish fry, CRNR provides trash bins and recycle bins and also the plastic bags that go in them.
And I'm not sure Mike Carey,
For advertising.
That'd be great.
if Mike Carey's still, I don't know if he's still on the line, is he? Okay, Mike, so
Yep, I'm here.
okay, so the soccer tournament needs some portable trash cans.
Well, the cardboard trash.
The cardboard, recyclable, anything that you could help us out with would be much appreciated. And the city would love it too, because we got to have it out there. So.
Yeah, let's try and quantify how many that is and we'll
Perfect.
see what we can do.
I'll reach out to you as well. Thank you.
And I can
Thank
take
you.
trash bags if they don't give you enough.
Perfect.
Let's see, any other discussion before we go into closed session? If not, we'll adjourn to closed session and the items are performance evaluation of the general manager and conference with labor negotiator, government's code number 54957.6, agency designation representative, which happens to be me, apparently, to negotiate with the general manager. So we can
Wow.
That's a
all right, we'll go back into closed session and I need to tell you that there was no report. Okay, we're back in open session and closed session has no reportable action. So thank you. I think it's time to adjourn.